Dear chosen ones, they laughed at your quiet moves. Now they're panicking at your loud results. That's the irony of walking in silent power. People confuse your stillness for weakness until it turns into thunder that shakes everything they thought they knew about you. But you knew what they didn't. Silence was never surrender. It was strategy. And now, while they scramble to figure out how you did it, you're simply walking in what was always yours, chosen one. Let's start with something sacred. Thank you. Thank you to every soul who's ever donated through Super Thanks, shared a message, left a kind word, or simply sat in silence, absorbing the truth. Whether you've given financially or spiritually, please know that your support has not gone unnoticed. Every click, every gift, every moment of your time, it's all fuel for this divine mission. And for those who haven't given monetarily, but continue to show up with open hearts and sharp spirits, you are just as appreciated. Whether you sowed a seed or simply stayed present, you are part of something powerful. And I'm truly honored that you're here. Now, let's make one thing crystal clear. What you do is not ordinary. Your brilliance can't be boxed. It's not just intelligence. It's a spiritual radiance that commands attention without begging for it. You don't need to shout. Your presence speaks before your mouth opens. And your courage, it's the kind people secretly wish they had. But here's the truth. Most won't say out loud. Your rise makes others uncomfortable. Why? Because it exposes their decision to stay small. Have you ever felt the cold silence from someone who used to cheer for you? Have you noticed how quiet it gets when you start to shine too brightly? That's not in your head. That's the reaction to your elevation. You didn't ask for a spotlight. You simply refused to stay in the shadows. And now, people are watching you with eyes full of questions. How did you make it through that storm? How did you rebuild after they counted you out? How did you keep going when it looked like everything was falling apart? Here's the answer they don't want to accept. You did it because you're chosen, not in a flashy, ego-driven way, but in a divine, soul-assigned, heaven-backed kind of way. You were built for this. That fire in your bones, it didn't come from nowhere. It came from trials that taught you, pain that matured you, and solitude that anointed you. You've walked through things people wouldn't survive, and yet you shine with the calm of someone who's already seen the ending and knows it ends in victory. You're not here to be impressive. You're here to be impactful. And whether they clap or not, your growth is being documented in rooms you haven't even stepped into yet. Your name is being whispered with reverence by those who once doubted you. And every step you take is proof that brilliance doesn't need validation. It just needs permission to show up fully. But let's get even deeper. Think about it. Why do people really get intimidated by you? Is it your success, your style, your voice? No, it's your clarity. It's the way you see straight through the games, the noise, the lies. It's the way you walk with peace when everyone else is panicking. It's the way you don't flinch anymore when you lose what doesn't serve you. That's what sets you apart. That's what makes you brilliant and dangerous to systems built on confusion. You didn't just wake up wise. You earned every ounce of discernment. You paid for it with heartbreak, with rejection, with nights you didn't think you'd survive. And yet here you are, radiating from a place they never thought you'd recover from. You don't just glow, you illuminate. You don't just move, you shift energy. And people are feeling it. So, how often have you been told you're too much, too intense, too smart, too deep, too direct? Now here's the real question. What if too much was never the problem? What if you were just too clear for their chaos, too pure for their manipulation, too anointed for their small talk? What if your refusal to water yourself down was the very thing that made you a mirror, and they didn't like what they saw in the reflection? The truth is, chosen one, you're a walking revelation, and not everyone is ready for that. Some will admire you, others will misunderstand you, and a few will try to dim you just to feel brighter. But none of that changes the fact that you are the answer to prayers they haven't even realized they've been praying. You are the proof that quiet strength is still strength. That humility doesn't mean invisibility. That divine timing always outruns human plotting. So, if you've been wondering why some folks fell off, why the applause got quieter, or why your name seems to stir up strange energy in rooms, it's because your growth has become undeniable. Your healing has become confrontational. Your existence, just as it is now a catalyst for others to either rise or retreat. And both reactions are confirmation. You didn't become this brilliant by chance. You became this brilliant by choice. You chose to keep going. You chose to get honest. You chose to show up with your whole self, unfiltered and unshaken. And now, you've become the blueprint for others who are tired of faking it. So drop a 777-inch the comments if this spoke to your soul. If you feel that stirring in your spirit like something sacred is unfolding, even now, lean in, because what's coming next will unlock something in you. Not just inspiration, but activation. Let's go deeper. Let's unpack the brilliance they didn't see coming and the courage that carried you through it all. Are you ready? Let's begin. God's chosen ones, you're brilliant and fearless, and that's what terrifies them. Number 1, they tried to fool you, but you were already 3 steps ahead. Chosen one. Have you ever walked into a situation that looked perfectly constructed to trap you, yet something inside you whispered, "Step back, that wasn't a coincidence." That was the divine alert system within you, your spiritual radar, sharpened by experience, betrayal, and fire. They thought they were playing a game of deception, but they didn't realize you already knew the playbook, and then some. Why do you think your spirit always felt a step ahead? You were never just reacting, you were discerning. And there's a massive difference between reaction and revelation. Revelation gives you foresight. You don't need evidence to trust your intuition. You have spiritual intelligence that scans what the natural eye can't detect. That's why, when people tried to play you, you didn't just dodge the bullet. You predicted the gun. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. Achat, John, Arba, Achat. Let's be real. People have studied you like you were their next victim. They thought your silence meant ignorance. Your kindness meant permission. But instead of falling into their web, you made sure their web caught nothing but their own intentions, like Harriet Tubman, who led hundreds to freedom, not because she had maps, but because she had divine instincts. You too move by knowing, not by noise, and that scares them. Have you ever wondered why you've been so hard to manipulate, even by people who excel at controlling others? It's because you carry the gift of spiritual pattern recognition. You see things repeat before others notice. The first cycle, you feel energy before a word is spoken. And when something is off, you may not always have the language, but you always have the signal. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you. For I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Jeremiah 1:19. Remember when Princess Diana famously said, "They didn't just marry me, they married a system"? She sensed long before the public did that something darker was at play. You've lived that kind of intuitive tension in friendships, in family, In business, people plotted, but God gave you sight. You may not have known the details, but you felt the pull. You felt the change in tone, the micro delays in response, the forced smiles. You didn't accuse, but you adjusted. That's your power, not in confrontation, but in calibration. You don't beg people to reveal who they are. You let time and energy do the talking. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 22:3. Think about whistleblowers like Edward Snowden. He didn't need confirmation from 1,000 voices to trust what he saw. Like you, he understood that some truths are too deep for public explanation. Some discernments are too sacred to debate. And so you learn to move in silence. Not secrecy. Strategic. Not scared. Your ability to detach from what others cling to, that's not coldness. That's clarity. When someone gives you counterfeit love, you don't rage. You retreat, and your retreat speaks louder than any argument ever could. Why does your quiet departure echo in the minds of those who tried to use you? Because it exposes their emptiness. The Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2:6. How many times have you walked away from a person or opportunity everyone else praised only to watch it fall apart later? That's not luck. That's spiritual precision. That's obedience to the still small voice others ignore. You're not paranoid. You're protected. Malcolm X once said, "I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it's for or against." You've lived that truth in your silence. You never needed to expose people to validate what you felt. God handled it. And those very people who laughed when you walked away, they're now crying in confusion over how everything collapsed. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. You didn't just escape manipulation, you mastered discernment. And that mastery came at a cost: loneliness, isolation, even ridicule. But look at you now. You're walking with peace others can't fake. You're resting in clarity others can't manufacture. You didn't just dodge their game, you flipped the entire board. Number 2. Your confidence is a strategy, and it's terrifying to the ones who never had the courage to try. Chosen one. Can we be honest? Your confidence isn't arrogance. It's evidence of healing, of clarity, of divine strategy. You didn't wake up this bold, you grew into it. Through silence, through setbacks, through seasons of being overlooked while still showing up. So now, when you move in purpose, people get nervous not because you're loud, but because you're clear. Do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. Hebrews 10:35. You no longer enter rooms wondering if you belong. You know you do. And that unshakable knowing, it threatens people who still get approval from applause. You don't need applause anymore. You've built a throne on self-trust. You've made boldness your home. Why do you think they whisper behind your back instead of confronting you face to face? Think about Chadwick Boseman. While battling cancer silently, he kept delivering excellence. That's you. Quietly powerful. You're not performing strength, you are strength. That's why your movements look offensive to people who've never tried to rise beyond their fears. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1:7. People aren't used to seeing someone like you walking in healed energy, setting boundaries without guilt, saying no without explanation. You used to second guess. Now you second prepare. You calculate not just the move, but the vibration behind it. You're not impulsive. You're intentional. Think of Michelle Obama. The way she moves, graceful but grounded, warm but unwavering. She doesn't need to prove anything. Neither do you. You don't chase invitations. You build rooms. You don't explain your vision. You embody it. And that alone is louder than any announcement. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Proverbs 28:1. Ever ask yourself why people you barely interact with seem so rattled by your presence? It's because your aura convicts them. You're not judging them. They're just seeing their own stagnation reflected in your evolution. They see what they could be if only they dared to believe like you do. Nelson Mandela walked out of prison without bitterness and led a nation with confidence forged in silence. That's your walk too. You don't need revenge. You need rhythm, movement, legacy. Your strategy now isn't about showing off, it's about showing up. Again and again. Until excellence becomes your normal. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Psalm 23:5. Your silence is not absence. It's strategy. And strategy scares people who live chaotically. You're not moved by noise. You're moved by truth. You don't panic. You prepare. And that's why your confidence feels like a sword in rooms filled with paper crowns. Oprah Winfrey built her empire, not by screaming for recognition, but by staying consistent, strategic, and spiritually grounded. Her very existence challenged systems. So does yours. You're not just breaking cycles, you're building systems. Quietly, bravely, brilliantly. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. Proverbs 16:3. So let them talk. Let them wonder. While they waste time analyzing your silence, you'll be building what they said was impossible. And when they finally understand your strategy, it'll be too late. The game will be over. And you, chosen one, will already be on your next level. Number 3. You stopped carrying dead weight. Now they're mad. You can finally fly. Chosen one. There was a time when you carried burdens that weren't yours to bear. You showed up for people who never once thought to show up for you. You gave and gave until you were running on fumes, thinking that maybe, just maybe, your love would heal what was broken in them. But what if I told you that they never wanted healing? What if they only wanted your light because they couldn't generate their own? You weren't just giving support, you were sacrificing yourself. And now that you've stopped, now that you've redirected all that divine energy back into your own growth, those same people who leaned on your exhaustion are offended by your glow. Have you noticed how the room changes when you start loving yourself out loud? When your yes becomes rare and your no becomes sacred, the atmosphere shifts, and not everyone claps. Some people only supported you when you were silently suffering for their benefit. But now that you've detached, grown, and protected your peace, their energy is no longer welcome in your healed space. That's not selfishness, that's spiritual survival. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:8. Think about Maya Angelou. Her poetry didn't just speak to brokenness, it honored healing. And healing is what you did. You realized that playing savior to people who were committed to being victims wasn't strength, it was slow spiritual suicide. You once wore their pain like a badge of honor, but now you've laid it down. You're not abandoning them, you're just no longer willing to drown trying to pull them to shore. You probably remember how they used guilt as a leash, how they'd say, "You've changed," as if change was a crime. The truth is, you finally evolved out of the version of yourself they could manipulate, and when they could no longer drink from your emotional well for free, they labeled you cold. But your refusal to be drained is not cold, it's clarity. Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. Psalm 55, Asherim Vishtaim. Look at Oprah Winfrey, who had to walk away from toxic relationships, even family, to protect the legacy God placed in her hands. She didn't do it out of bitterness, but because her calling demanded it. Just like you. You realized you can't carry everyone, and you shouldn't have to. Your empathy is a magnet, but now it's surrounded by discernment. You're not available to leeches, you're aligned with lions. It's not that you stopped loving people, it's that you stopped enabling them. There's a difference. And the moment you stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage, your strength came back, your glow returned, your soul began to breathe again. That's what scares them. You didn't get bitter, you got better. And they can't access the healed version of you because they were only loyal to the broken one. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Think about Chadwick Boseman, who endured so much in silence, choosing roles that elevated culture while battling private pain. He didn't drain others to stay afloat. He protected his inner world to complete his purpose. You, chosen one, are doing the same. You've stopped explaining your peace. You've stopped justifying your healing. And now you're attracting people who see your heart and honor it, not exploit it. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. So let them fall away. Let the ones who fed on your fatigue feel the weight of their own chaos. You didn't lose them, you freed yourself. And now, chosen one, you are light physically, emotionally, spiritually, and that's why you're finally flying. Number 4, they couldn't control you, so they tried to destroy you. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every spiritually awake person's life when they realize the love they received wasn't unconditional, it was transactional. It depended on how accessible, moldable, and obedient you were to the needs of others. And the moment you changed the rules, the love disappeared. You didn't suddenly become unworthy, you became unmanageable. And that's what triggered their attacks, because you stopped letting them feed on your light without accountability. You noticed it, didn't you? The shift, how quickly their smiles faded when your no became firm. How quickly support turned to sabotage when you stopped shrinking to fit their needs. They didn't hate the old you. They hated the you that evolved. They hated the version of you that stopped begging for permission to be whole. So they retaliated, not out of pain, but out of panic. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. Deuteronomy 31:6. It's the same pattern history shows us. Look at Malala Yousafzai, shot in the head for daring to pursue education under Taliban oppression. Her courage exposed their control. Just like your boundaries expose the entitlement of those around you. You didn't yell. You didn't attack. You simply reclaimed your light, and that alone made them feel powerless. Some of them tried to get sneaky. They switched to passive aggression, fake support, and subtle sabotage. They told others you were too much or too ambitious, as if dreaming big was a crime. But that's not shade, it's projection. Because when people can't control you, they try to control how others see you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. They thought pulling you back would stop you, but God used it to launch you. Think about Serena Williams. Her power, her dominance, her refusal to be tamed made her one of the greatest athletes in history. But it also made her a constant target of criticism. That's the pattern. Power that can't be tamed becomes power that must be attacked. But you, chosen one, are covered. What they meant for harm, heaven is using to elevate you. Every rumor only added fuel to your mission. Every rejection redirected you to a better alignment. You didn't become cold, you became focused. You didn't become rude, you became refined. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece, pais presece. Look at Jesus himself. He healed. He loved. He taught, and still they tried to destroy him. Why? Because he couldn't be bought, couldn't be silenced, couldn't be controlled. And when you walk in that kind of divine clarity, expect the system to come for you, but also expect heaven to cover you. So when they ask, "What happened to you?" tell them the truth. You woke up. You stopped sacrificing your peace to keep their illusion alive. You stopped playing small so others could feel big. You didn't cut them off. You elevated out of reach. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done. Genesis 50:20. Let them gossip. Let them scheme. Let them regret. But don't you dare stop rising, because chosen one, your resistance to their control has birthed your elevation, and while they scramble to reclaim what they lost, you are already walking into what they were never prepared to handle. Number 5. You woke up and now fake energy can't stand to breathe around you. Chosen one. Can you feel the shift in the air when you enter a room? Not because the room changed, but because you did. The people who once felt comfortable around you now seem nervous. The conversations that once seemed harmless now leave a bitter aftertaste. Have you ever wondered why that is? It's because your awakening disturbed their performance. When you woke up, the act ended, and the ones who only knew how to survive in your old frequency couldn't follow you into your new one. What if your sensitivity wasn't weakness, but spiritual technology? What if your discomfort around certain people wasn't paranoia but prophecy? You've stopped second-guessing the chills in your spine, the weight in your chest, the tension in your stomach. You've stopped needing proof to honor what your spirit already knows. And now, people who wear masks find themselves suffocating around your presence. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. Have you noticed how much heavier small talk feels lately? How gossip drains you faster than silence ever did? That's not you being antisocial. That's you being aligned. You used to tolerate things for the sake of being polite. Now you protect your peace, as if your purpose depends on it, because it does. Every time you compromise your frequency, you delay your destiny. And you're not in the business of delay anymore. Look at Lauryn Hill. When she walked away from the music industry at the height of her fame, people called her erratic. But what if she was simply too awake to stay in a system designed to numb? You're living that truth now. What others see as isolation, you know as insulation from fake support, empty flattery, and manipulative attachments. Have you started walking into rooms and instantly knowing who's out of alignment? Do you feel exhausted after being around certain friends? That's not rudeness, it's revelation. You no longer guess, you sense. And when your spirit says, "This is not for you," you don't argue, you withdraw. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Matthew 5:8. Why do you think fake people get nervous when you speak? Because you don't just talk, you see. You ask the questions they're not ready to answer. You look beyond the performance and into the soul. And that level of perception can't be tolerated by someone who survives on illusion. Let's talk real for a moment. How many times have you smiled while your gut was screaming that something was off? How many times did you keep peace on the outside while your inner world was burning? You don't live like that anymore. And that's why certain people had to go. Think of Keanu Reeves. His authenticity makes him magnetic. He's not loud, but he's real. And in a world addicted to pretending, realness will always be rejected before it's respected. That's what you're feeling. Chosen one. You're being rejected by what can no longer touch you. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Isn't it strange how people who once couldn't stop calling you now suddenly give you space? That's not distance, it's exposure. They're not pulling back because you've changed. They're pulling back because they were never real enough to stay near this version of you. You didn't push them out. Your healed vibration pushed them out. Your life is becoming a filter. The fake falls off. The true steps forward. And it's all happening without force. You've become a divine magnet, not for noise, but for alignment. And now, the ones who can't match your soul will fade without a word. So ask yourself, who around you gets uncomfortable when you're at peace? Who only liked you when you were doubting yourself? Shrinking. Playing small. Your awakening didn't ruin your circle. It revealed it. Number 6. You broke the cycle, and now they're watching what they couldn't control heal without them. Chosen one. Do you realize what you've done? You didn't just walk away from dysfunction, you shattered the system it thrived in. This wasn't about leaving toxic people behind. This was about reclaiming your power from generational patterns that were never meant to continue. You didn't just heal yourself. You healed a timeline. Who else in your family said no to what you refused to normalize? Have you ever asked, why did this responsibility fall on me? The truth is, because you were strong enough, not perfect, not fearless, but willing. And that willingness made you dangerous to every cycle that depended on your silence. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you. For I am with you, and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Jeremiah 1:19. You see, people don't always clap when you break free. Sometimes they glare. Sometimes they gossip. Sometimes they vanish. And that's because your transformation demands their reflection the moment you stopped over-explaining your worth. They had to face why they only liked the broken version of you. The version that was easy to use, easy to manipulate, easy to dismiss. But that version is gone. And now they watch, stunned, as you become what they tried to suppress. Let's look at Viola Davis. Her rise to power wasn't just talent, it was truth. She stood in rooms never designed for her and told stories never meant to be heard. Her presence shattered expectations, just like yours is now. Have you noticed who claps for you quietly, but celebrates others loudly? That's not support, it's surveillance. And your spirit knows the difference. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. How many times have you been told, you've changed? But here's the real question. Why were they so comfortable with the version of you that was hurting? Why did your healing become a threat? It's because their connection to you was never love, it was access. And when you revoked their access, they mistook it for betrayal. Think about Michael Jackson. Behind the glitter and glamour was a man trying to rewrite a childhood stolen by fame, pain, and performance. His battle was spiritual. Yours is too. You're not just healing, you're unlearning. You're detaching from every lie that said your worth depended on sacrifice. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm. Therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Galatians 5:1. Ask yourself, who benefits when you overextend yourself? Who pouts when you say no? Who disappears when you start shining for real? These aren't just red flags. These are spiritual warnings. You don't owe anyone access to a healed version of you who had to fight through hell to get here. Now your presence carries weight. Your silence feels loud. Your glow radiates clarity. And they're watching, some with regret, some with resentment, some with respect, but all of them watching because you broke what they never had the courage to confront. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. You didn't just break the cycle to feel good. You did it to create something new for yourself, for those who come after you, and even for those who don't know how to thank you yet. You're rewriting the legacy, and it's being written in real time with every healthy decision, every protected boundary, every sacred no. Now, ask yourself, chosen one, what else are you about to heal? Just by being in the room, let them watch. Let them wonder how you did it. You didn't owe them your pain, and you certainly don't owe them your healing. You are free now, and your freedom is sacred. Number 7. They tried to dim you. Now you're the one everyone looks to for light. Chosen one. Have you noticed that lately? People are watching you differently, not with the same dismissiveness or condescension they once showed, but with quiet awe. What changed? You did. You didn't demand power. You didn't push your way into positions. You simply became undeniable. Your presence is no longer an option, it's an anchor. Have you ever asked yourself why people now seek your energy, your voice, your calm, even when they once tried to silence you? That's the mystery of true leadership. It doesn't roar, it radiates. You never needed a spotlight to prove your worth. Your character became your microphone. And as you've grown, something sacred has happened. You've become the stabilizer in unstable spaces, not because you chase chaos to fix it, but because your inner peace is louder than their noise. Let your light so shine before others, that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Matthew 5:16. You weren't always celebrated for this calm, were you? Think about it. How many times did people tell you that you were too quiet, too soft, too observant? But let's be honest, didn't you notice how often those same people eventually came to you when they needed grounding? They called you passive until your discernment saved them. They called you invisible until your clarity outshined the loudest voice in the room. Consider Mahatma Gandhi. His power was not in yelling, but in presence. He wasn't loud, but nations shifted around his silence. That's the power you carry. You're not chasing authority, you are authority. Rooted, unshaken, real. Have you realized how your growth made others feel exposed? Those who used to dominate the room with ego now falter when you enter, even if you say nothing. Why? Because your soul speaks truth without needing volume. That's the gift of divine alignment. You became a lighthouse not by building the tallest tower, but by refusing to hide your light. The greatest among you will be your servant. Matthew 23:1. People feel safe around you because you don't manipulate. You don't scheme. You don't take power. You create it. You empower others by your presence, not by your pressure. And that's why the very ones who tried to dim you are now turning toward you. They see something in you they were too blind to notice before. Integrity. You weren't just quiet. You were consistent. You didn't just survive, you matured. And that slow, deliberate evolution became louder than all their noise. Have you ever stopped to consider what made them so uncomfortable with your light in the first place? Was it because it revealed their shadows? Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Isaiah 61. Look at Rosa Parks. Her refusal to give up her seat wasn't loud, but it shook a nation. You've been doing the same. Every time you refused to retaliate, every time you walked away instead of proving your point, every time you chose wisdom over war, that's not passivity, that's prophetic power. They mocked you for being different, but now they mimic you. They rolled their eyes when you talked about healing, but now they repost your quotes. They questioned your decisions, but now they seek your advice. Isn't it ironic how your very essence, once rejected, is now revered? Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens. Daniel 12. When people try to control the narrative about you, but the fruit of your life speaks louder, that's leadership. And chosen one, let's be honest, have you ever truly realized just how many people are drawing strength from watching you rise? People you'll never meet, people who may never tell you, but your journey, your light is permission for them to believe again. Think of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, a gentleman with soft words, but his kindness reshaped generations. He didn't lead with dominance, he led with love. That's your kind of leadership. Quiet, consistent, convicting. So let them talk, let them speculate, let them wrestle with the guilt of trying to dim you. Because while they were competing for attention, you were becoming the example. And now, whether they admit it or not, they look to you for what's real. You are the reference point, the emotional compass, the blueprint of quiet strength. Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Proverbs 16:3. You're not done rising. In fact, you've only just begun. But know this, your leadership is not accidental. It's ancestral. It's divine. And it's the reason the very ones who underestimated you are now following your glow. So tell me, chosen one, will you dim again just to make others comfortable? Or will you keep shining, even if it blinds those still hiding? Number 8. You outgrew the room. Now they're uncomfortable with your wings. Chosen one. Do you feel it in your bones? The undeniable truth that you no longer fit where you used to thrive. You walk into rooms that once felt like home, and now they feel like cages. What used to energize you now drains you. What used to validate you now feels small. Why? Because you've outgrown your old identity. And those who benefited from your smallness are struggling to accept your expansion. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Isaiah 40:31. You weren't being dramatic when you said, something feels off. That was your soul knocking. That was divine discontent whispering, it's time to fly. You didn't wake up one day arrogant. You woke up aligned. And alignment always offends those who preferred your confusion. Let's be honest. How many times did you silence your brilliance to make others comfortable? How often did you dull your intuition, downplay your dreams, suppress your spirit just to avoid rocking the boat? And now that you've stopped, the boat is rocking anyway. Because growth, by nature, exposes what was never stable to begin with. Think about Michelle Obama. As she stepped into her identity, she left behind expectations that no longer served her. She didn't just evolve, she expanded. And like her, you're not abandoning anyone. You're simply refusing to stay in rooms where your wings are viewed as a threat. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. John 8:32. What you're experiencing now is spiritual altitude sickness. When you rise too high, those who were used to breathing fake air can't survive the elevation. That's not your fault. That's proof you're evolving. Have you asked yourself why they seem annoyed by your silence? Why your peace agitates them? It's because your transformation is a mirror. Your evolution showed them what they avoided. Your courage confronts their complacency. Your wings remind them they chose the comfort of the ground. And rather than grow with you, they resent the sky you now call home. But one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead. Philippians 3:13. Think of Simone Biles. She didn't just win gold. She stepped away from competition when her peace was at risk. That's growth. That's power. That's the level you're operating on now. You're not driven by approval. You're led by alignment. And yes, it hurts. Growth is lonely. It costs connection. It redefines love. But every step away from who you were is a step toward who you really are. You didn't lose those people. They lost proximity to your wings. They lost access to your grace. And that's a consequence, not a punishment. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch out the curtains of your dwellings. Do not spare. Isaiah 54:2. There's no going back to who you were. That version of you who tolerated crumbs, who over-explained, who begged to be chosen, is gone. What remains is someone bold enough to leave a full room to find a full life. And now the rooms that once made you shrink are too small for the power you carry. Consider Chadwick Boseman. He moved in silence. But every step was legacy. He wasn't just acting, he was aligning. His room was bigger than the spotlight. So is yours. So, chosen one. What are you clinging to that no longer fits you? Are you dimming again to be liked? Or will you stretch your wings and fly, even if it means flying alone? You didn't betray the past by outgrowing it. You honored it by refusing to stay there. Now let them say you've changed. Let them whisper you've become distant. Because the truth is, you didn't leave them. You simply outgrew the version of yourself that needed their approval. And now, you fly with no apology. Number 9. They thought failure would break you, but it built a version they can't compete with. Chosen one. How many times did they watch you stumble and whisper, "This one won't get back up"? How often did people smirk behind your back, assuming the setback would swallow you whole? But here you are, still standing, still building, still rising. Can you feel how different you've become? How powerful you've grown in the places where others expected you to collapse? Failure didn't break you. It baptized you. It took you through a fire that burned off the illusions, the people-pleasing, the unnecessary weight. What's left is not just survival, it's strategy. What once looked like defeat was divine direction. You weren't just bouncing back, you were being reconstructed. Have you stopped to ask yourself, who would I be if I never fell? The righteous falls 7 times and rises again. Proverbs 24:16. What they failed to understand is that you were never chasing perfection. You were building endurance. The storm didn't scare you because it grew you. You've cried alone. You've rebuilt in silence. You've succeeded without applause. And that kind of transformation, it doesn't sparkle. It shines with substance. Let's talk real. How many times did failure teach you more than success ever could? When that relationship crumbled, didn't it show you your worth? When that job fell apart, didn't it push you toward your true purpose? When the plan failed, wasn't it actually protection? You've learned not to curse the fall, You now thank it. Think of J. K. Rowling, rejected by dozens of publishers before becoming one of the most successful authors in history. Her setbacks were setups, just like yours. You weren't a need, you were redirected. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Jeremiah 29:11. Failure sharpened your discernment. It taught you who was really in your corner and who was only there for the celebration, not the rebuilding. It showed you that not everyone can be trusted with your wounds. And now you give access based on integrity, not flattery. Have you noticed that you no longer panic when things fall apart? You pause. You pray. You plan. You've built emotional muscle from carrying heavy disappointments. And now, they wonder how you're still going. Not only so, but we glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Romans 5:3. Look at Tyler Perry, homeless at one point, ridiculed for his storytelling, but he kept writing. He kept showing up. Now he owns a film studio that changed an industry. People saw his pain, but they didn't see his process, just like they didn't see yours. You no longer attract people who only show up when you win. You now attract those who admire your resilience, your truth, your scars that became strategy. You've become magnetic, not for surface relationships, but for soul-aligned ones. Ask yourself, why do the same people who once judged your failure now silently study your growth? It's because your bounce back is baffling to those who only know how to pretend. You didn't fake your healing. You earned it. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. Nelson Mandela sat in a prison cell for 27 years. He wasn't erased, he was refined. And when he stepped out, he didn't seek revenge, he sought reconciliation. That's strength. And you've been walking in that same quiet fire. You stopped fearing failure because you've already faced it and risen from it. You're not here because you're lucky. You're here because you learned. And every no the world gave you pushed you closer to your yes from God. Every closed door became a classroom. Every heartbreak became a holy redirection. So, when they ask, "How are you still going?" you don't owe them an explanation, just smile. Chosen one, because you know they thought it would break you, but it built the strongest version of you yet. Number 10. You see through people too fast. That's why they fear your presence. Chosen one. Has anyone ever accused you of judging too quickly? Or maybe they say you read too much into things. What they don't realize is that you're not reading too much. You're reading accurately. You don't just hear words. You sense motives. You see beneath the surface. And for those wearing masks, your presence is spiritual X-ray vision. You've walked through too much not to see clearly. The tone, the eyes, the body language, you don't need them to lie. You already know, and that knowing, it's what unsettles them. Because when someone operates in illusion, your truth feels like an attack. Behold, I send you out as sheep among wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Matthew 10:16. Have you ever walked into a room and felt something off before a word was spoken? That's not anxiety. That's awareness. You carry discernment like armor, and while others are still falling for charm and charisma, you see the patterns, the intentions, the manipulation. People used to confuse your silence for naivety. They thought your kindness meant blindness. But now, the silence is strategy. The kindness is controlled. You no longer give people the benefit of the doubt, just because they smile right. You trust energy now, not appearance. Look at Princess Diana. She was surrounded by royalty, but behind the scenes, she was isolated and often betrayed. Yet she carried a light that exposed the cracks in the system, just like you. Your presence reveals what others work hard to conceal. The spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all his innermost parts. Proverbs 20:27. You've developed a radar that doesn't need validation. Your gut is accurate. Your spirit is in tune. And for people who thrive on pretense, that's terrifying. You become the mirror they never asked for. Your intuition doesn't flatter, it reveals. And people who have something to hide never last long near you. Have you noticed that the more you speak truth, the quieter some people get? It's not that they disagree, it's that your clarity dismantles their performance. They can't perform in front of someone who sees the script, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. John Achat, Hamesh. Think of Malcolm X. He didn't just challenge systems, he discerned them. His insight wasn't popular, but it was prophetic. You walk with that same kind of awareness. It's not always loud, but it is always felt. And those who come with false intentions feel that pressure the moment they enter your space. You're no longer asking, "Am I being too much?" Instead, you're asking, "Why are they hiding?" That's the shift. You've stopped explaining your discernment and started honoring it. You trust your spiritual radar more than people's performances. Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. John Sheba, Esrim Ve'arba. And yes, that discernment has made you walk alone at times. Because when you see through people too fast, it's hard to pretend, but chosen one. Your isolation isn't punishment, it's purification. God separated you so you could see clearly without noise. Think of Billie Eilish. At a young age, she spoke openly about fake energy in the industry. She saw through it all. Her music reflected her discernment. She didn't adapt, she confronted. And now, the world listens to her authenticity. You are not paranoid. You are prophetic. You don't sense too much. You sense exactly what God wants you to know. So when people fear your presence, don't shrink. Don't over-explain. Let them feel what truth feels like. Because the ones who are real, they'll feel safe. But the ones who aren't, they'll flee. And that, chosen one, is how discernment keeps your life clean. So let me ask you, are you willing to keep trusting your gift, even if it leaves you misunderstood? Because every time you honor what your spirit tells you, you step further into divine protection, divine power, and divine purpose. And those who tried to fool you, they never stood a chance. Number 11. They called you too much, but you were just too clear for their chaos. Chosen one. Have you ever been called too intense, too serious, or too high maintenance? Have people ever rolled their eyes when you set a boundary or quietly left a situation that no longer resonated with your spirit? Let's set the record straight. You weren't too much. You were too awake for the mediocrity they were used to living in. Your clarity became their discomfort. Your standards became their limitation. And instead of rising to meet you, they tried to label you. Why? Because when someone thrives in dysfunction, your refusal to participate makes you look threatening. You became the reflection they didn't ask for but needed to see. Every time you chose solitude over drama, peace over performance, self-respect over self-abandonment, you reminded them that what they were tolerating was optional. You stopped dancing in chaos and started walking in truth. And not everyone could handle that tempo shift. Do not throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Matthew Sheba, Shesh. For too long, you gave access to people who hadn't earned the right to sit at your table. You lowered your energy to be relatable, shrunk your voice to keep the peace, watered down your presence so others could feel taller. But what did it cost you? Sleep, sanity, self-worth. Now that you've stopped doing that, the same people who once benefited from your dilution are calling you difficult. But tell me, since when did self-respect become a problem? You used to say yes because you were afraid of being alone. Now your silence is sacred. You don't fear solitude anymore. You reverence it. Because in solitude, you found yourself again. Your peace is no longer negotiable. Your soul no longer entertains confusion. You don't argue with people who've made a career out of misunderstanding others, and for those who can't manipulate your emotions anymore. Your clarity feels like arrogance. But is it arrogant to know your worth, or is it finally holy? Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. Think of Maya Angelou. She once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." You've learned to believe people, not their words, but their patterns, and because of that, you stopped justifying mistreatment. You stopped staying in spaces where your spirit was starving. You realized that loyalty to chaos is not love, it's bondage. Now, ask yourself this: how many times did you give people the benefit of the doubt, only to be left bleeding spiritually and emotionally? How often did you overextend, overgive, and over-explain, just to keep people comfortable in your life? But the moment you raised your standards, they left. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they were never enough for the version of you that finally woke up. The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. Proverbs 29:25. Look at Michelle Obama, criticized for her confidence, her voice, her intellect, called too strong, too direct, even intimidating. But what really made people uncomfortable? Her refusal to shrink, her decision to walk in excellence unapologetically. That's you. You didn't change to please them. You changed to please God. And in doing so, you change the atmosphere of every room you enter. The truth is, you're not too much. You're just not available for games anymore. Your yes is now sacred. Your no is now final. And your presence is now a gatekeeper. Only those who bring peace, truth, consistency, and integrity are welcome. You've turned your life into a high-frequency station, and only those aligned with your vibration can access you now. What's wrong with that? Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. Matthew 5:37. You used to let anyone tune in people with static, with hidden agendas, with jealous undertones masked as support, but not anymore. Now you filter conversations like you filter food. You know poison when you taste it. You used to tolerate emotional junk just to feel wanted, but you've detoxed now. You're not disparity, you're discerning, and discernment is divine. Let's talk about Prince, a man who refused to compromise his artistic integrity, even if it meant walking away from fame, contracts, and comfort. They called him eccentric, rebellious, too much. But the truth is, he simply refused to be controlled. Sound familiar? You're no longer afraid to be called too anything, too spiritual, too deep, too intense, because you've come to realize that too much only sounds loud in a world where people have settled for not enough. You don't apologize for requiring clarity, depth, consistency, and truth. That's not being high maintenance. That's being spiritually healthy. They went out from us, but they were not of us. Achat John Shtaim, Tisha Asra. Have you noticed how the ones who left your life the moment you stopped playing small were the same ones who clapped the loudest when you were still bleeding? They didn't love you. They loved your vulnerability when it was exploitable. And now that you've healed, now that you've become self-aware, they miss the access, not the relationship. So ask yourself, who benefited the most when your standards were low? Who celebrated you most when your boundaries were broken? And why are they calling you difficult now that you've found your voice? Look at Brené Brown. She teaches the world about vulnerability, boundaries, and shame, resilience. Her work has helped millions, but not without backlash. Why? Because truth makes people uncomfortable, especially those who benefit from your confusion and your clarity. Chosen one is now a spiritual weapon. Your no is now thunder. Your "I don't tolerate that anymore" is a locked door that fake energy can't knock on. You've become a fortress, not out of bitterness, but out of brilliance. And let's not forget, Jesus himself was considered too much, too bold, too radical, too real. And yet, he didn't shrink to fit the Pharisees' comfort zone. He walked in purpose, knowing that clarity would offend those married to illusion. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs 16:7. You don't need a crowd. You need a circle. And while your circle might be smaller now, it's filled with power, with purpose, with people who don't flinch when you speak truth, who match your energy, not manipulate it, who see your worth, not discount it, who come correct, not confused. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be prophetic. Your life isn't a performance, it's a platform. Every time you choose integrity over image, you preach. Every time you choose solitude over toxicity, you prophesy. Every time you say no to what no longer feeds you, you rise. So keep the standard. Don't lower the bar just because others can't reach it. That bar is your protection. That boundary is your blessing. That discernment is your destiny. And let them talk about how you've changed, about how different you've become. That difference, that's what saved your life. So let me ask you directly, chosen one, will you apologize again just to make the counterfeit feel comfortable? Or will you stand firm in your standard and continue building a life that reflects your worth? Because let's be clear, you are not hard to love. You are just impossible to play. And only the real ones get in. Number 12. You move like you've been here before because 1,000 souls walk with you. Chosen one. Do you ever pause and wonder why people seem shaken when you walk into a room? Even if you say nothing, why your presence seems to carry weight far beyond what your words or titles can explain? Why you instinctively know things others spend years trying to figure out? It's because your soul is not new. Your wisdom didn't begin with you. You're moving with the momentum of those who came before you, warriors, prophets, healers, truth-tellers. Their echoes walk with you. Their victories and battles embedded in your spirit like a divine inheritance. You were never meant to blend in. You were born carrying ancient fire. They don't understand how you know what you know, but your bloodline does. That's why you feel things before they happen. That's why your instincts rarely fail you. That's why you speak with clarity others can't replicate. Because you aren't just drawing from personal experience, you're drawing from generations of survival. Revelation. and divine memory. Every step you take is guided by voices you can't always explain, but always feel. Do you feel them now? But the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. John 14:26. Have you noticed how people hesitate around you, not because you're aggressive, but because you're aware? You don't fall for surface charm. You see through masks, past performance, beneath the noise. And what they don't realize is that this sight isn't something you earned in this lifetime. It was planted in your soul generations ago. The wisdom you carry isn't learned, it's remembered. Think about Harriet Tubman. She said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." How did she do what she did? With no GPS, no technology, no roadmap, just spirit-led instinct. That's the energy that pulses through you. You know things you've never been taught. You sense the way, even when blindfolded by uncertainty. You move with divine navigation. Have you ever found yourself leaving situations that looked good on paper, but felt spiritually wrong? And when others asked you why, you had no evidence, only the conviction that something unseen wasn't right. That's not paranoia. That's sacred intuition speaking through the voice of your ancestors and the whisper of the Holy Spirit. The steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord, and He delights in their way. Psalm 37:23. You weren't built to react like everyone else. That's why people say you're too calm, too quiet, too deep. They're uncomfortable because you operate from a depth they've never touched. You don't need chaos to feel alive. You move with peace because peace is your compass. And peace, chosen one, is power. When people ask, "How do you always see through the lies?" It's because your discernment is activated by legacy. The women who prayed in secret, the men who stood in silence, the spiritual warriors who fought without recognition, they live in you. That's why your boundaries are non-negotiable. That's why your standards can't be manipulated. You don't just sense energy, you speak it. And your truth is not something you recite, it's something you radiate. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. Let's look at Maya Angelou. Her words weren't just beautiful, they were ancestral. Every poem, every speech carried the vibration of those who came before her. That's the vibration people feel around you. They may not be able to name it, but they feel the stillness, the strength, the sobering weight of someone who didn't just survive, but who remembers what survival cost. And let's be real, that remembrance doesn't come without burden. There are days you feel emotions that aren't yours, days when your heart aches without cause, when your spirit grieves without logic. Why? Because you're sensitive to generations past and present. You carry the weight of spiritual atmospheres. You feel the rumblings of a shift before the world ever sees it. But here's the beauty. God chose you for this. He trusted you with the sensitivity, with the foresight, with the weight. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing, because your soul was built for alignment, not applause, for purpose, not performance. To one is given the word of wisdom through the Spirit, to another the word of knowledge. 1 Corinthians 12:8. Do you notice how people come to you for clarity? Even when they mock your depth, how they quote your words weeks after pretending not to hear you. That's because your voice is rooted in revelation, not reaction. And revelation never goes out of style. It only gets louder with time. Think of Nelson Mandela. Even in isolation, his dignity could not be erased. His calm was confrontational. His stillness shook empires. You walk in that same grace. Your power doesn't need a platform, it simply is. That's why the spotlight feels foreign to you. You don't chase it, you carry it. Ask yourself, why do others crumble under the pressure you've learned to carry with grace? Why does your silence feel louder than their shouting? Why does your presence command attention even when you're just observing? It's because you're not showing up alone. You walk with a lineage. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. Achat Peter, Stein, Tisha. Look at Beyoncé. Critics call her mysterious, too polished, too intentional. But what they really feel is the presence of someone who walks with ancestral fire, someone who understands the weight of legacy, just like you. Every move you make now is not just about you, it's about those who come after you, your shifting bloodlines. Not chasing approval. You don't follow trends. You don't seek validation. You don't perform emotions. You embody truth. And that embodiment comes with an aura, a frequency, a presence that either attracts or repels but never goes unnoticed. You move differently because you are different. You speak with depth because shallow conversation starves your spirit. You set boundaries not to be distant, but because sacred things require protection. You don't chase community. You become community. And the people who are ready will find you. Wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Proverbs 3:15. Have you ever wondered why you're often misunderstood in shallow environments? Why you never quite fit in spaces that thrive on superficiality? It's because your very essence demands depth. Your presence is a disruption to complacency. You are a spiritual alarm clock, waking people out of comfort zones, shaking systems that rely on silence. Think of Frida Kahlo. Her art wasn't just creative, it was revolutionary. She turned pain into power, suffering into symbolism. Her life was her language. You do the same. You speak in presence. You teach without trying. You heal by standing. And that's why people feel exposed when they're not ready. So here's your reminder. Chosen one, you're not strange. You're sacred. You're not distant. You're discerning. You're not intimidating. You're initiated. You don't need to explain your knowing. You are the knowing. So trust it. Even when it isolates you, even when people don't understand, even when logic fails, but your spirit speaks. You're not making it up. You're remembering. And every step you take is legacy in motion. Number 13. You didn't chase influence. You became the frequency that others follow. Chosen one. Have you noticed something unusual lately? Strangers reaching out with reverence. People you barely know saying, I don't know what it is about you, but something told me to listen. You're not doing anything flashy. You're not making noise. And yet, something about you is pulling in souls from every direction, drawn not to your image, but to your energy. Have you asked yourself, why now? Why me? Because you didn't chase influence. You became frequency, a living, breathing signal in a world filled with static. True influence isn't built by shouting, it's built by aligning. And you've aligned with truth, with healing, with heaven. That's why people feel you before they understand you. That's why your silence carries more weight than others' speeches. That's why your consistency is speaking louder than any viral moment ever could. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew, Chamsh, Erba, Isra. You didn't need a stage to be seen. You didn't need validation to feel worthy. You healed in the shadows, grew in the wilderness, transformed in solitude. And now that you've emerged, not as a brand, but as a being. Your presence has become a lighthouse in the dark. Let's get one thing straight. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to resonate. That's why people feel safe around you without knowing why. Why conversations with you go deep fast. Why others feel seen in your presence, even if you've just met. Because your energy doesn't perform, it remembers, and your remembrance activates something ancient in others. Have you noticed how those who are still asleep feel uncomfortable around you? How they deflect your eye contact? How they shift in their seat when you speak truth gently but directly? That's because your vibration is a mirror, and not everyone's ready to see themselves yet. The Spirit Himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God. Romans 8:16. Think of Eckhart Tolle. His presence is calm, grounded, still, and yet million lean in. Why? Because awakened frequency doesn't have to entertain, it awakens. That's what you're doing now. Without trying, without effort, your life is speaking, and those who are ready are listening. You used to wonder why you didn't feel at home in certain spaces, why you couldn't fake small talk, smile through lies, or pretend to care about shallow things. But now you understand your soul was never designed to compete in that noise. It was built to transmit clarity. So let me ask you, chosen one, what rooms are you still shrinking in? Just to make others feel comfortable around your frequency. You've stopped needing recognition because your existence is already a revelation. You don't follow trends. You set temperature. You walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts not because you demand it, but because you carry it. Look at Fred Rogers. Yes, Mr. Rogers. A quiet man in a cardigan who revolutionized emotional intelligence for generations. He didn't seek fame. He simply embodied peace, and the world couldn't help but follow. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Colossians 4:6. You're no longer performing for love. You're embodying truth, and that embodiment, it's magnetic, because in a world addicted to filters and facades, authenticity is irresistible. The healed version of you doesn't need applause, it moves in assignment, and that assignment is why doors are opening without you knocking, why opportunities are finding you, why people say, I don't know how I found you, but I'm glad I did. The chosen one. You are no longer seeking your tribe. You've become the beacon for it. Those who've done the work are recognizing the signal, and those who haven't, they're either rising or retreating. That's not your doing. That's your frequency. Deep calls unto, deep at the roar of your waterfalls. Psalm 42, Sheba. Look at Kendrick Lamar. Not loud on social media, not chasing fame, but when he speaks, the world stops to listen. Why? Because when energy is authentic, it doesn't have to compete. It commands. Let's be clear. Your influence is not accidental. It's ancestral. It's spiritual. It's earned, not through clout, but through courage, through silent healing, through nights when no one clapped for you, and you still chose light. That kind of light doesn't fade. It intensifies. It becomes reference. It becomes rescue. Have you noticed how people send your name in group chats now, not for gossip, but for guidance? How they quote your words when they think you're not listening. That's because you've become a compass. Your story is now a roadmap. Your scars have become coordinates for others who are trying to find themselves. Think about Mother Teresa. She never owned a microphone, but her energy built movements. Her consistency carried miracles. That's you. Every act of integrity is building a foundation no storm can shake. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament. Daniel 12:3. So what now? Chosen one, do you dilute your light to fit into places you've outgrown? Or do you honor the fact that your alignment is someone else's awakening? Because the truth is, they're not following you, they're following the frequency you fought to carry. And that frequency didn't come cheap, it came through tears, solitude, sacrifice, and obedience. Have you asked yourself lately, who's watching me now, not out of envy, but out of hope? Because you've become more than an individual. You've become proof that healing works, that authenticity wins, that silence is strength, that it's possible to rise without performance, to lead without ego, to shine without burning others. Think of Bob Marley, a man who sang truth into rhythm. His lyrics weren't just catchy, they were coded healing. That's your presence now. You don't just speak, you resonate. You don't just write, you remind. You don't just move, you shift. And the ones meant for you, they don't need directions. They feel your light like a heartbeat. You didn't build this to impress. You didn't chase this to escape. You simply became, and in becoming, you lit the path. So I'll ask again. Chosen one, will you shrink your light to keep others from noticing? Or will you finally accept what's already true? You are the signal. You are the frequency. You are the lighthouse. And awakened souls, they don't need instructions. They follow the light. So, chosen one, as you continue to rise in truth, power, and purpose, remember this: your light was never meant to be hidden. It was always meant to lead. You didn't make it here by coincidence. Every painful shift, every sacred cutoff, every silent breakthrough, every season of isolation, it was all preparation, not to make you bitter, but to make you bold. You've been sculpted by divine design. Not everyone will understand that, and they're not supposed to. This journey wasn't given to a crowd. It was given to you, the rare soul with the strength to carry it. You didn't just survive your trials, you were transformed by them. You didn't just weather the storm, you became the storm's translator. And now, everything about you carries weight. Your words carry healing. Your silence demands respect. Your mere presence shifts atmospheres. That's not ego. That's anointing. And whether they admit it or not, people feel it when you walk into a room. You're not just remembered, you're felt. You're not just noticed, you're discerned. And all of it, the trials, the confusion, the losses have brought you to this moment of clarity, where your soul speaks louder than your mouth ever could. Thank you for being part of this journey. Whether you've watched every message in this series or just this one, know this: your presence here is not a fluke. It's divine alignment. Thank you for letting your heart remain open to truth in a world that thrives on illusion. Thank you for leaning into your healing, your calling, your frequency. Thank you for walking this path, not perfectly, but faithfully. Your consistency, even in private, is what's shaking things in the spirit realm. Your prayers, your tears, your boundaries, they all matter. And I see you. More importantly, heaven sees you. If this message stirred something deep within you, if it reminded you of your purpose, your brilliance, your mission, then share it. Don't keep the light to yourself. Someone in your circle may be one word away from remembering who they are. Be the bridge. Be the fire. Let your light awaken others. And if you feel led to support this work and keep these messages flowing, you can do so through the super thanks button below. If you feel called to sow a seed, whether small or significant, know that it helps continue this work, expand its reach, and pour into souls across the world. But hear me clearly, your support is never measured in dollars. Even if you don't give financially, I am still deeply grateful for you. You are seen, you are honored, you are valuable just for showing up. Your engagement, your presence, your spirit, that's the real offering. This movement isn't built on wealth, it's built on willingness. And if you're still here reading this, that means your spirit was willing to be fed, reminded, and restored. So, here's my blessing for you. Chosen one, may every door that was slammed in your face lead to a divine corridor you didn't even know existed. May everything stolen from you be returned with interest. May your discernment get sharper, your peace get deeper, your strength grow quieter but more unshakable. May your name be spoken in rooms you haven't entered yet, but were always meant to lead. May your circle evolve until it mirrors your heart, authentic, aligned, and anointed. And above all, may you never forget who you are, not what they said you were, not who you had to pretend to be, but who heaven always knew you were. You're not chasing influence. You are the influence. You're not hoping for alignment. You are the alignment. You're not trying to be chosen. You were already chosen. And now, the right ones are finding you, rising with you, and building beside you. You've become the frequency they didn't even know they were searching for. So keep glowing. Keep guarding your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Keep walking with purpose, even when the path is foggy. And keep showing up as the most powerful thing you can be in this world. Your whole, healed, honest self. Chosen one. You're not at the end. You're just getting started. The best is not behind you. It's ahead, rising to meet you, drawn to your integrity, attracted to your elevation. And as you go forward, may you never again dim your light to make anyone else comfortable. The world needs your fire. The kingdom needs your voice. And heaven is backing your every step. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And no matter where life takes you after this moment, carry this truth in your spirit. You are not alone, because you are the light they've been waiting for.